We have a great crowd here, and hello to the Zoom people out in Zoom land. We're doing a hybrid meeting, which is kind of cool. Welcome to the Waltham Land Trust annual meeting. It's our 24th annual meeting. I'm excited. I love the number 24. My name is Nadene Stein. I'm the president of the board of directors for the Waltham Land Trust. And on behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome you tonight to our annual meeting. We're going to have a great program for you tonight. And I think the first thing I get to do, I have the best job of the night because I get to introduce Sonja. She is our awesome executive director. So she's working right now, but she's going to come over here. Please give Sonja a great hand. You could absolutely not do this one without her, and you'll see why just as soon as she starts talking and tells you what was coming up next.
Thanks, Nadene. Excellent. So we're gonna advance the slide. Okay, I've been pushing like all sorts of different things, none of them are working.
Yeah.
Right, so here, Nadene said welcome, but actually I did just want to go back so we could look at the agenda. Why? Okay. Alrighty, so yeah, here's our fantastic agenda. Nadene welcomed us, and we're all really happy to be here at the First Parish Church. If you need to go to the restroom, they are around the corner. Just go around the corner, and you'll find it, and that's good. So I'm just going to quickly talk about the highlights, and we'll have our A.B. Euler Environmentalist of the Year. Mr. Finison is going to give us a fantastic presentation about Kittie Knox. We'll hear from Barbara about the Greenway connection, our next phase of the Western Greenway. We'll hear from Laurel about the Mass Central Rail Trail, and Diana will tell us about the Lakeview parcels, our new purchases, which we're very excited about. And then we'll hear about our financial status. And then another very fun part, we'll be voting on returning and new directors. We have some new directors who'd like to join us, so we're really very excited about that. We'll take some questions and answers. Best part, ice cream. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, all right, so we're going to go to the program highlights now. Excellent. Awesome. So we have so much going on every year. You guys know that we do programs every single month. We get people outside. We also have programs indoors. We do stewardship things. We got a lot going on. But I did want to highlight one very special program that we did this year with Ms. Nala Suzuki over here. Yeah. And this was the Flow Participatory Art Project. It was an art installation that was really very neat. So Naue approached us and said she'd like to do this neat art project where folks would be asked to think about what is your relationship with water, and then type thoughts on a sheet of paper. But some of these events were preceded with a guided river walk that I did. But Naue and Emily and others were with us on the walk, and we all talked about history and nature, and it was a wonderful time. And then we got to the studio on Moody Street, the Lincoln Arts Project Gallery, and we saw this big, beautiful space, and we were thinking about what is our relationship with water, and we typed up our thoughts on papers and then put them up on the wall in exchange from a previous sheet. So now I've been doing this project since 2015, and she had 200 slips of paper that were put up that were people's reflections on their relationships with water. So they were arranged in a very neat way, actually mimicking the route of the Charles River in Waltham to an extent. So we had well over 100 folks coming and listening and admiring and thinking about how important water is. And 56 of them actually stepped up to the typewriter and typed their thoughts and then exchanged it with a previous participant with their thoughts, and we created a new river of them. So these are some adorable pictures. I am over here leading a walk one of those days, and Emily was there and Naue, and it was great. And we were talking about Ward Woods, which was a restoration project that we've been doing along the Charles River by the Ward Avenue boat launch near the watch factory. So like I said, we were talking about restoring the woodlands that lead up to the river and doing restorations. And then people went to the gallery and typed up their thoughts. So here are some adorable kids typing up their thoughts. And then they put them up on the wall. And here's Leonidas, who said his relationship to water is to play with it. So then he became an artist. So these folks, these 56 people who did a sheet, they became part of this art installation. So all these folks are now artists, along with Naue. This was Kailani, who I love. Her relationship with water is very inspirational because I want to become an artist, and water is my happy place. Every time I go to the beach, I love looking for pretty rocks. And now we encourage people to write down where they were from, either or where they're living right now, or where their family was from. So Kailani lives in Waltham, but her mom and her grandmother are from Guatemala. And her mom and her grandmother were at this event, and it was just really wonderful. I spoke with them, although they didn't speak much English, but they understood when I said, you must be very proud of Kailani. And they said, yes, we are so proud. So that was really neat. So this was the finished product. This is this whole new river of words about folks' reflections on their work with water, on their relationship with water. But like I was saying when I was talking about Kailani and others, a really neat aspect of this program was the collaboration that we had with the Waltham Dual Language School. Naue approached a third grade teacher, Priscilla, and said, what do you think? Would your students be interested in being involved with this program? So 15 of them created artist books where they had text and graphics about the importance of marine life. And lots of them were in both Spanish and in English, and they were on display as part of the exhibit. And also part of the exhibit was having the wall texts in both Spanish and in English. So that was really cool. And I just can't express how happy I was and excited I was to see so many families from the dual language school coming and participating in these different events. So here's a couple of them. This was Sebastian. And so this went over, obviously that's the 15 little booklets there that were on display. Luna is the sweet girl with the cat ears, and Emerson, she's actually the daughter of Amanda, who's a land trust steward and a member. So these girls were excited about their things. And this was Rudy, and that is Professor Miss O is what they called her, Priscilla. Okay, so that was the flow thing. That was really cool. And I do have some materials over on that table from the program, including an essay that I wrote. Now it asked me to write my thoughts, kind of more extended, about my relationship with water, and I have a long history with water. So I wrote a whole bunch over there, and we have extra copies. So like, I hate having wasted paper. So if you feel like taking home my reflections on my thoughts with water, please do. And we have some of the postcards that I think a lot of you had mailed home to you, and just some really cool stuff. So we really enjoyed that project. All right, stewardship. Most of you guys know that we have volunteers who help us remove litter and invasive plants on their own. And then also some folks organize big work parties. And so we have folks on the Charles River. Emily does a lot of work along the Charles River. We have folks picking up litter and removing trash along the Western Greenway. We will be having them along the soon to be Mass Central Rail Trail when it's officially open, which it's not yet. We also have folks working at Prospect Hill Park and around Hardy Pond. But this past year, we had a lot of effort focused around Wellington Fields. Wellington Fields is part of the historic Wellington property, which is located at 775 Trapello Road. And the rec department has care, control, and custody of the fields cart. The Waltham Historical Society Commission has parental custody of the building and then of the land immediately around the building. But most of our work was dealt with the fields. So we were dealing with the rec department. And the volunteers led by Betty down the bottom, Betty McKenzie, had over 60 work days, and this is in 1 year. Amazing. Sometimes they have them 3 times a week, and they had 3 special team days. We get a lot of requests from corporate groups or from student groups like at Bentley. We had a group of Japanese exchange students, and these folks were like, "Yeah, we want to do something. Can you figure out a program for us or an activity?" So we had 5 really big team work days. And all in all for the year, we had about 100 volunteers, and 70 to 80 of them were part of those special teams. Look at that, 620 volunteer hours. That's huge, guys. This is time, money, effort that our stewards saved the city from having to deal with. So it just really makes my heart swell with pride. And it's just amazing. And then Betty, Dr. Sandy, and Mybrit were involved with a lot of the planning of that execution. And there were many folks like Bob and others who regularly helped us on work days and left tools around. Like Bob was our guy who was always going to the tool shed and picking up the reed wrench and whatever else and bringing it all over the place. So we just had amazing folks. So here are some great pictures. Oops, wait, we have to go back to that one. Because look at the mess. This is the before shot. Holy cow, it's a jungle. I don't even know how they got through. I mean, must have had a machete. Lots of work. So Mort Isaacson is up in the corner. He's the chair of the Waltham Historical Commission, and he helped out. These were some of the team groups that we worked with. This was a philanthropic group from Bentley. And then over the bottom, that's Brian McCormick, outgoing board member Brian, doing some work, lugging some branches around. And here we have Courtney and others who were spreading seed. And then we also put down hay because we were putting paths around this property. And then also there's going to be open meadows and wildflowers, and it's just going to be gorgeous. So the turkeys loved it, as did the deer. Like, you know, they were there while we were working. So that was really fun. And then, yeah, here's some more after shots. They were putting down plastic to try to suppress weeds. And that's what they're doing along the historic stone wall. So this is a historic property, guys. It's like from the 1600s. These walls are from the 1600s. A lot of amazing things happened here. And it's beautiful. Who's been up to Wellington Fields? A couple of you, yay. We encourage you to go check it out. Parking's tough. There really isn't parking on the property, but you can park across the street and then carefully cross Trapello to get to it. We are working with the rec department and the city to make it a more welcoming place. It is open to the public. So we're doing our best to work with the city to try to make this a really wonderful open space property that our people can go and enjoy. But definitely I encourage you though to check it out. Betty's gonna continue to have events throughout. There might even be some in the wintertime. But for the Land Trust, we have 3 really big stewardship days. One is Earth Day, and that's around April 22nd. And we usually have a cleanup along the Charles River on that day. But then also the 4th Saturday of September is National Public Trails Day, Public Lands Day rather. And then in September is National Trails Day. So we usually have events, stewardship events, which everyone is invited and encouraged to come to. And lately they have been up at the Wellington Fields because it's just such a big, beautiful property. We can accommodate a lot of people there. So we're very much looking forward to welcoming people to Wellington Fields. Any comments or thoughts about that, or Bob or others who are Mybrit, Chris, you know, Was it awesome? Is it awesome?
Yeah.
It is awesome. Confirmation, yes. Okay. All right. So now we're just gonna move right along into our Inge Euler Environmentalist of the Year. This is always a hard thing for me to think about. The history of the award is that Inge was one of our founding directors. And she stepped off the board in 2011, or I guess it was before then, but in 2011 is when we named the award after her to recognize her amazing contributions to our work. And as far as I know, Inge is still with us, which is great. She lives in Weston, and we miss her very much. So this environmentalist of the year is not necessarily a volunteer of the year. It's more kind of who did something or lots of things to help us further our mission. And that's not always being a volunteer. It's sometimes doing other stuff. So examples of our previous recipients include Miss Emily Sefik over here, Betty McKenzie, who I'm guessing is watching from home. Hi. Oh, wait, where's Betty? Hi, Betty. I didn't see you. Sorry, it's Betty McKenzie over there. Bob, of course, is right there. Hey, Bob. Jarek, who was the leader of our Word Woods project. And we've had advocates, Dee Cricker, who is an amazing land trust member. She's been on our board for a while, but she's not recently, but Dee has done lots of advocacy for the field station and other important open space parcels. A couple of years ago, we recognized George Darcy, who was one of our founding directors. He is a current city councilor for Ward 3. And in his capacity as a city councilor, he was responsible for changing the zoning of a lot of properties to conservation recreation. So adding another layer of protection to these open space parcels. So we really appreciate George's efforts on city council to make open space preservation a real important thing that the city needs to recognize. So we're happy to recognize George for his work on that. And then last year, we actually welcomed back Ann Clifford. Ann used to be a city employee. She was the curator of the Stonehurst Payne Estate, which is a beautiful historical property up off of Beaver Street, and also advocated and worked with us when the parts of the Chesterbrook Woods, which has been part of the Payne Estate, were at risk for being developed as part of the high school. And in her capacity working with the Friends of Stonehurst, helped us do what we could to save that land. So we wanted to bring her back, and is a planner with the town of Concord. So we think she did a nice move, personally speaking, moving away from Waltham. So these are some of the people that we have recognized in the past. This year, though, we decided to recognize someone who has been doing a lot of stuff to bring the word of the land trust and land conservation and sustainability to other segments of our community. And I've talked a little bit about them already, because it's now a be surprised you didn't know, this is part of our thing, we don't tell them. And this was my favorite picture. This is from 2021. This is during the Charles River cleanup. Of course, we couldn't do the cleanup in 2020 because it was right in COVID. But in 2021, we did it, and we had folks wearing masks. And you guys remember how cold it was? Holy smokes, it was so cold that day. But now he came, and she's there at the Ward Avenue boat launch and picking up litter along there. And we were asked, because the American Rivers gives us the trash bags they would use, and they said, please look for your favorite photo of people from the cleanup, and this was my favorite photo. And I don't really know now at this point. I didn't know you. This was the first time you volunteered with us. I just thought it was adorable. So she helped out with cleanup, became a steward, became a member, and she spent a lot of time at Ward Woods. She lives near there, and she likes to walk along it. So, oops, crap. sorry. So here's Nawe and the team, Bob and Emily, Christine and Roger are in that picture. And here she is watering some plants. And then, but what really made me excited, and especially this year, to recognize Nawe is this collaboration that she brought to us, involving the artist community and folks who like creative things. And then of course, working with the dual language school. These are segments of the community that we haven't really reached out to. I mean, we're always trying to engage different types of people in different segments of our community, but now I really made concrete plans and involved us in that work. And I'm grateful for doing that. But Nawe has been an environmentalist like her whole life. And as an artist, she's been always trying to raise awareness about the importance of water and other things. She was actually part of New York Climate Week, big deal. And so she was part of this big group exhibit, the Nature Positive Hub, and then also an exhibit in Boston, the State of the Earth, which was women artists, and they were talking about biodiversity and things like that. So Nawe is incredibly cool, and I think she's the best. And I really admire her desire to spread the word about land conservation and sustainability. And I'm just so grateful for her involving us. So here she is at work in the flow stuff. She's teaching the kids how to do a typewriter. What's really fun is that when we were doing this, Priscilla, Ms. O, the professor from the dual language school, was translating as now I was describing what the deal is and how you can exchange your thought. And so Priscilla was like, blah, 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 typewriter. Folks were like, what? So that was pretty fun. And I think that's my last slide. So I have something for Nawe, and I'd like to get come up, please. Here, let's go over here. You're very welcome. I just bought this frame. I swear to God I did. But when I was putting this thing in, I literally just bought it, so I'm really sorry. Hopefully you can like hang it up or awesome. She swims in Waltham Pond still. She goes and does some yeah, I know. I always like, oh, look at pictures. And you walk along the Charles River. And also what I appreciate about now is that you talk about Quinity Quinn and how that was the name of the Charles River, the Massachusetts term.
Yeah.
Right. So do you want to say a few words?
Well, I am speechless because I really did not expect it. So thank you so much, and thank you all for, everybody's doing wonderful, wonderful work. Yeah, I'm just so speechless. Just one thing about my project that I've been doing from 2015, I give away artwork from the installation in exchange for people's stories about water. And that project is based on the concept of viscosity that we need for our water, for the environment, but also for each other. So Waltham Land Trust is just the perfect partner for my work, and it just came so beautifully. So I'm so happy about how they came out, and this I just don't know what to say.
Yeah. It's one other thing about Nawe, she's from Japan and her parents are still in Japan. And Nawe, what do you do with them every day?
Oh, I give them exercise on Zoom. Teaching it tonight.
Thank you.
I started since the pandemic, so we just finished 637 sessions.
I think that is.
And I was maybe more than last Saturday or Thursday. Wow, I'll probably go tomorrow too.
She's amazing, and I learned to swim in Walden, so it's like a special little thing for me too, but anyway, all right, so that's Naue. And I think now we're ready to move on to our main presentation. I mean, if we're ready, so here, oh, and I don't have my script, but I'm delighted to introduce Mr. Lorenz Finison, who is, I forgot all the wonderful groups you're with, but the
Hopefully I can remember.
never make it hard to thing, but
I'll remember.
Lawrence is part of the New England Cycling Coalition for Diversity. And he's also part of the Friends of the Bicycling History Collections at UMass Boston. And many people, like I know Laurel and others are familiar with Larry Lawrence, and the great work that he's been doing, spreading awareness about bicycling and diversity and history. And I get his newsletters, and I got one a few months ago where he was talking about Kittie Knox, and I thought, wow, I want to hear more about her, and I want to spread the word about her amazing achievements and the challenges that she faced and the successes that she had. And I think it's appropriate. I mean, we're a land conservation group, but we love bike trails, and we're really excited about the Mass Central Rail Trail. A lot of us are cyclists, and I just thought it would be a really cool presentation. So I reached out to Larry, and he's like, sure, I can do that. So we're really happy to have Larry come up.
I don't know what to do. We have to do, it doesn't seem to be. I don't know what's not attached to this one. Huh, I mean, again, sometimes you unplug it. No, sorry, I could do it for here.
Well, thank you, Sonja, and thank you to the board, and also thank you to the whole organization. I was really blown away by that presentation of what you do. I didn't know very much about the Waltham Land Trust, and I still don't know very much, but what I know, it sounds just wonderful. So sign me up. Yeah, so anyway, I want to talk about Kittie Knox tonight. How many people have ever heard of her? Oh my God, a bunch of people already have. Well, I hope I'll have some new material for you and some really good stuff for everybody else in the room. Let's see if I can make this work now. So my main topic is Kittie Knox. Whoops, not happening. So I'm going to dedicate the talk tonight to Kittie Knox, who I think was a very courageous young woman of Boston in the 19th century, in the late 19th century. It really derives from several books on cycling that I've done, mainly about the Boston area. There's the first two. And then about a year ago, I finally came out with the third and last book I will ever do. But it was fun, it really was, and I still enjoy doing the research. And I've recently done a lot more on Kittie Knox, so which is why I have some new stuff to share. So all of my work really focuses on issues of race and class, gender, migration, immigration, culture, and politics in the context of bicycling. It's a great vehicle, no pun intended, to begin to explore some of these issues as they occurred in the 19th and even into the 20th centuries. So that's what I've been about for the last 15 years. I want to give you a little bit of background first in terms of the 19th century cycling, a little bit about Waltham, and then some stuff on Kittie Knox, and then how Kittie Knox connected to Waltham. And then we'll conclude with some thoughts about her. As you can see, there are different styles of bicycles there. There's a couple of what we call safety bicycles in the front. And this is an ad, by the way, from Columbia, a manufacturing company, which was a bicycle manufacturer run by a man named and owned by Albert Pope. In the background there, you can see a man on a high wheeler, a couple on a tandem bicycle, and way in the background, you'll see a tandem tricycle. And we'll have a chance to quickly talk about each one of those modes of transportation. So there's the first ride of the Boston Bicycle Club in March of 1878. And that takes place right at Chestnut Hill Reservoir. There's an old arch there that disappeared many years ago. But that's Chestnut Hill Reservoir. That was the first ride. And the source on this is a Canadian historian and collector of bicycling pictures named Lorenz Shields, who's been quite helpful in all of them. So, and there's some people on tandem tricycles. And look at that. A couple of things to notice about that. Does anybody recognize the background there? What does it look like? Oak Bluffs, otherwise known as Cottage City in that era. And what we've got there are the tandem tricycles. And the curious thing about the tandem tricycle was almost invariably, you see the woman is in front and man is in back, which was the typical relationship of the time. And he was kind of elevated up over the big back wheels. The other thing to note, though, is that invariably there was a kind of a steel bar that ran between the handlebars in back to the handlebars in front. So that in all cases, the woman was seated in the most chivalrous position in the front seat. But the man always had control, because he ran the steering and braking from the back. And that was a very typical thing which carried over into the tandem bicycles as well. Here's Cottage City, likely about 1891. And you can see there's a transition, because about half of the bicycles there are high wheelers, and the other half are safety bicycles, which had about equal size wheels, chain driven, pneumatic tires ultimately, which made things much faster and easier. And so that's about 1891. And here's the League of American Wheelmen's Massachusetts division out in front of a great, huge former skating rink, that is roller skating rink, down right at the dock in Cottage City, Martha's Vineyard, likely about 1891 again. Now, I want to introduce briefly Waltham. This is another form of a tricycle. The difference here is that there's one large wheel and two small wheels. But the two small wheels are in line, which means if you were going over ruts, unlike the other form of tricycle, you only had to fit your bicycle into 2 lanes of rutted road, rather than 3 lanes of rutted road, as you would with a traditional tricycle. But that is indeed a tricycle there. And it's owned and perhaps built, but at least owned by William Shakespeare. He's quite a wonderful character, as we all know. Not the original William Shakespeare, of course. Although his family, some of whom still live in Waltham area, certainly claim that there's a lineage. But that was from William Shakespeare, and the source of that photograph is in the Waltham Museum Annex, which is an old barn, as far as I can tell. And I happened to find that picture and took a picture of it. It's really quite a wonderful picture, I think, quite a wonderful style of bicycle. So that's William Shakespeare. And he also comes into the picture in just a few moments. There's his bike shop. Pine Street. You also had one for a while on Lexington Street. Orient Manufacturing Company is over, actually, as you can see, Crescent Park. And finally, we have the Waltham Cycle Track or Cycle Park from the 1890s. And here is a race just going off. And the location of that is just off of Shakespeare Road, which is just off of South Street. So if you're driving by there up through to Brandeis, you'll see on the right-hand side, you'll see Shakespeare Road. And if you go in there, you arrive at Nippermaher Park. And that's exactly where this old bike track was. And well, look at that. So John Allen and I do a historical bike ride. He's here. There he is right there. And we discovered some of the old stone piers supporting the old grandstand, which was torn down, I think, in 1905 or something like that. So there he is, just pointing out, doing his archaeological thing. And I'm so glad to have him here tonight. Jazz Dodden, who did the YouTube film from which this is taken, she did a whole YouTube film on Kittie Knox, and she's here as well. So just wave your hand or stand up or something, Jazz. She did a great film called in a series called Black Gems on Earth. It's quite a wonderful, wonderful YouTube film. And John is one of the main characters in it. So there we go. So Kittie Knox, let's turn to her. What were her main cycling issues? They had to do with race. There was a color bar against Black participation. League of American Wheelmen started in 1894. She faced issues of gender, what to wear and what not to wear. Mostly women advised wearing the long skirt. You can imagine what a drag that would have been to drag along, literally. And how fast? She loved to ride fast. She didn't race, at least not legally, because the League of American Wheelmen forbade women's racing. But she decided she liked to ride fast. She liked to ride long. She did century rides, 100-mile rides, fairly frequently. And skin color was also an issue during that time. She's variously listed in the census and other places as Black and mulatto and octoroon. And there's some whole issues around that that I go into in the book and was a part of her life. So there's some locations for her. She was born in Cambridge, up near Broad Canal, which is right next to what is now Longfellow Bridge. And she grew up there and moved over to Boston to the corner of Irving Street and Cambridge Street. And if you go up Cambridge Street and you see a Starbucks, that was her house. It's still there. So there's some info about her family. Her father, John, was a Black man from Philadelphia, a tailor. Her mother was from Parsonsfield, Maine, and was a seamstress. And Catherine, or Kittie Knox herself, was a seamstress as well, and became a cyclist. In 1893, she was noted in the Indianapolis Freeman, which is one of the main, I would say not main, but one of the Black newspapers in the country. And they apparently had correspondence scattered all over because they had people writing in from Cottage City, Martha's Vineyard, and they described twice her activities on Martha's Vineyard. I'm especially taken by the fact that they described her as being a graceful rider. She was a dancer too, but she certainly was a graceful rider. And as I said, in the 1890s, the League of American wheelmen gradually pushed forward a color bar against black racers. It was protested by the Massachusetts, New York, Illinois, and Pennsylvania delegations, but their opposition was kind of softened because it was thought, well, maybe if we can get this color bar in, that'll mean the southern delegations will support our good roads movement, our attempt to improve the character of the roads around the country. Didn't happen, but that was the argument at the time. And ultimately, one of the Kittie Knox's buddies, a black newspaper reporter for the Globe, and also a state representative, in 1894 introduced a resolution in the Massachusetts State Legislature. It was finally passed, denouncing the League of American Wheelmen's color bar. And it was just kind of a really amazing thing to see that they did that. And of course, they deprecated all the discrimination that was involved, and ultimately it was passed by the legislature and had absolutely no effect at all on the League of American Wheelmen, as far as we can tell. So let's go back to the Waltham Cycle Park in the 1890s now. And so there's a woman dressed as the traditionalists would want her to. On a, with a long skirt and on what we now think of as a lady's bike, a drop frame bike. And that picture was taken at Norumbega Park, just up the river. Now, here's the Waltham connection. In 1895, on the 4th of July, Kittie Knox entered a cycling contest, not a race, but a cycling costume contest. And this is from one of the local papers, the Waltham paper, describing who placed and what they wore. And they noted that Kittie Knox won the event, the costume contest, but she wore bloomers. She did not wear a long skirt. And in the end, it's noted in the paper that some of the women in the grandstand hissed at the thought that she would show up in bloomers or a short skirt and not the long skirt as they thought was required. It's interesting because in some of the newspapers, they say it's the men who hissed. And in other newspapers, they say it's the women who hissed. And finally, one of the league officials said, well, it had nothing to do with what she was wearing. It had to do with the fact they didn't want a black cyclist winning that contest. So the actual truth in all of this is kind of up in the air, and we've never been able to discover, but I think it makes a really interesting question for contemplation, is what did it? So anyway, her story made it all over the country. And this is a thing from the Santa Fe News, hissed the bloomers. And stories like that appeared all over. And she survived the occasion. And in fact, 2 days later, she went to Asbury Park to the National League of American Wheelmen's meet, even though by that time there was a color bar. So her protest and resistance to the color bar was quite well known as well. And it appeared in, I would say, 150 or 200 newspapers all over the country, that story. And again, it's sort of, did she get turned away? Did she not get turned away? Well, it turns out, since she'd become a member all the way back in 1893, the Massachusetts folks who were kind of running things there said, hey, she was a member in 1893. And just because you passed a color bar in 1894, you can't kick her out. She's a member as long as she wants to be. And ultimately, she went along and did very well there. She was not admitted to some of the hotels and restaurants and found her own way to go. But there she is in 1895. You'll see that she's got a safety bike with a high bar, not a lady's bike. And she's got all her league badges to Talk to her. And there she is. And there's some of the newspaper headlines. That's the San Francisco Call. So as I say, she was famous all over the country. Cyclists in a tangle arguing about whether she should stay or go. And various descriptions of her. A saddle-colored damsel from Boston, and here's the one I like the best, and I know Jazz does too. The murky goddess of Beanville. Can you imagine? Those were published by the Southern Cycler, which is based in Louisville. And one of the main wheeling magazines called her Buxom Beautiful Black Bloomite. What's that, alliteration? Something like that. And there she is up in the left-hand corner, proudly wearing her bloomers. Jaunty pose. She came back to Boston and was selected as a kind of pace setter for the Massachusetts League. Went out to Lake Sigmund for their big summer meet, and she went on out there with them. And there she was coasting down a hill in Worcester. I love that. I love that picture. So she was accepted, even lionized in Boston, but she was also excluded from some of the rides. This is Captain Handy, who refused to allow her to ride in the Boston Wheelmen's Club ride in 1895. But on the other hand, she appeared in the Boston Post, featured as a lady scorcher, the leading lady scorcher in town. And there's her picture and a little description of her. Long article. It's been really well worth reading. She died in 1900 at age 26, buried in Mount Auburn Cemetery. And her main family raised some money to put up a headstone. She was in an unmarked grave, put up a headstone, and this is Vice Mayor Janice Simmons, who's still, I think, on the city council in Cambridge. Who came in 2013 to dedicate a stone. And every year we have an annual ride in her honor. Mass Bike and the New England Cycling Coalition for Diversity. And here we all are right on the backside of Mount Auburn Cemetery. More legacy. A bike path named after her in Cambridge. Cycling articles. Kittie Knox rides in different states. Boston and Cambridge city proclamations about Kittie Knox Day. Bookmarks for the Cambridge schools. Jazz Dotton's film, wonderful film. And the latest thing we're involved in now is with an organization called Plays in Place. It's now getting written and produced a series of plays called Kittie Knox Bicycling Barrier Breaker. And we're now in fundraising mode, which is why I came here tonight. Just in case you've got an extra $100,000 in the back pocket, let's have it. So there she is, two different shots of her. There's Boston's bicycling barrier breaker. And so we got time for a question or two, or you want? Yeah, let's go.
Absolutely. And if you have books for sale, you
Oh,
can right over here.
yes, got books for sale. My daughter Carly is here. She's the main salesperson, and I'm happy to sign them. They're $25 cash, or you have also what, Venmo? Venmo. So anytime you want to step over, and I've got a few left there, and you're welcome to get one. The first book on Boston cycling craze, it has a ton of material on Kittie Knox. So step on up. Step on up with your questions.
Anyone, thoughts, comments?
Yes,
Scorcher.
what's that?
What's a scorcher?
A fast rider. A very fast rider, and traditionalists among both men and women cyclists hated scorchers. Particularly women scorchers, because they claimed that it would give them bicycle face. And the thought, as they actually published this stuff, as the thought of women sweating along the road in a very fast way was just enough to turn people off from bicycling totally. So, yeah, there was a great prejudice against women's racing, except for certain professional women racers. And for that, that was more spectacle than anything else. But in amateur racing, governed by the League of American Women, there was no such thing. There's another question over here. Yeah,
She died at 26.
yes,
What was the cause?
kidney disease. And we're trying now to get some of the records out of Mass General Hospital where she died, to see if we can figure out if there's any background to that. I mean, she grew up along Broad Canal in Cambridge, which was a notoriously dirty, smelly, polluted canal. And there may be some connection there. It may be that there are certain chemicals used in her work as a seamstress.
That's where they rent kayaks today.
Exactly right. You're exactly right. Right next to the Longfellow Bridge. That's right. It's a lot better than it was. Yes.
So this wasn't an inexpensive hobby that she had here, or her riding. How did she fund it?
How did she fund it? I think she funded it two ways. As a, she funded it, go ahead. She funded it through her work as a seamstress. Her mother was also a seamstress. I suspect that she actually went to Martha's Vineyard in the summertime to work as a seamstress for some of the wealthy families on the vineyard. And in any case, at a certain point, she could have gotten a secondhand safety bicycle for not huge dollars. And beyond that, there were also rentals to be had right there at Cottage City, right at the end of the dock. So there are all kinds of ways she might have done that. Another mystery, by the way, is that when she was buried, a man named William Goddard stepped up and bought her burial place. And all we know about him is he was a wealthy son of New England, Harvard College grad, a man of leisure, who was one of the first residents to build in Back Bay. And for some reason or other, he bought her a burial site at Mount Auburn Cemetery. And we have no idea why. Yes.
Where is she at Mount Auburn?
You can check at the main gate and find the exact burial site. She's near the back gate. But she's easy enough to find if you go in the main gate. Visit the, sort of an ironic twist is that William Handy, who was the captain who kept her from taking part in the Boston Humans ride, was also buried there, not too far from her. Yes, yes.
You said that she would ride a century, 100 miles.
Yeah.
But were any of these roads nicely graded?
That's a really good question. Basically, the major turnpikes were. So they would typically go, if they're doing 100 miles, they'd go to Newburyport Turnpike, which is now Route 1, or they would go to Providence, the Providence Turnpike, nicely graded, and still Route 1. So they would select places like that. Now, the thing about Cottage City is that there were 40 miles of concrete roads there, right in the village itself. Once you got outside of that, the sandy roads down to Edgartown were impassable. as were many of the other destinations there for many, many years. Yeah. Yeah,
I find it very interesting, the way women were allowed to bike, astride the bike. When I was a child, I knew, women who rode horses.
Side saddle, right.
Because it wasn't appropriate to ride astride a horse. And the side saddle was, if you've ever been in one, it's just impossible.
yes,
I mean, I understand the balance issue. A side saddle rider would have to have a very large horse to compensate for the imbalance of the rider. So it makes total sense, but it's so interesting that this was permitted and, you know, it wasn't permitted really on.
well, I've never seen pictures of women riding side saddle on a bike.
Yeah, no, it would be impossible because.
I would think so. Now, they would ride a sociable tricycle, which means that they would ride side by side with their partners. And there are even some examples of sociable bicycle, tandem bicycles. So instead of front and back, they were cycling side by side. But no, side saddle, I can't imagine. Yeah, other questions? Got one more maybe? Yes,
Does she still have any relatives in the area?
yes. Her her uncle's granddaughter lives in Acton. And she's been very much involved. In fact, that part of the family chipped in to raise the money for her headstone. And she also has some old scrapbook with her pictures in it. And she brings that out every year when we do the annual ride, because one of the stops on the ride is at the cemetery at her gravesite. And Nan Millette always brings that scrapbook out to show the cyclists, which of course is a pretty exciting thing to see. Yes.
In which month is the annual ride usually?
June. We try to do it in early June. I think that's about it.
Is that how long is that ride? It's not 100 miles.
Oh, no. I can't do 100 miles myself anymore. No, there are choices. You can either go like 10 miles, right around the Esplanade and over to East Cambridge where she lived and up to the cemetery and back around again, or you can do the long ride all the way out to Waltham and visit Nippermar Park and then circle around and come back again. So there's plenty of choices, and we'll make sure you all get a note to join us. This is a slow ride. It's something that's really interesting historically, and will cause you no pain at all. Anything else? Yeah.
Just a little aside, when I was growing up, we called it Bicycle Park even before it became Nippermar Park and before it was dedicated.
Yeah.
I never knew that's why I called it Bicycle Park. I rode my bike over there to watch the teams playing baseball and stuff there, but I never knew why it was called.
Wow, that's exactly why it existed. It existed for about 10 years. And then there was enough accidents and mayhem, and a couple of people were killed out there, and they finally closed it up. So, yeah. Besides, the bicycling craze ended at about 1900, about the time she died, and people lost interest. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, and I'm sure that many of you know that that at the Waltham Museum of Industry and Innovation, there are several old bicycles and pictures, including those Major Strong, who was a gentleman who rode, and who was a black man who was like the fastest man in the world in like 1892. Taylor, I'm sorry. Yes, so there's a lot of great information at the Waltham Industry Division and some great pictures, so do check that out. And it looks like we are letting you all know that the Land Trust has a survey that we would really want every single one of you to complete. If you haven't already done so, you can scan the QR code that's in your program. And we have it also in Spanish, but usually during our annual meeting, we take some time at the end to ask folks, what kind of program would you like us to hold? What kind of walk or history talk do you want to hear about? And you can tell us on that survey. We're also looking for input about our big fundraiser. 2024 could be our 20th Green Spade Blues Jam. But we might go in a different direction moving forward, whatnot. So we're looking for input. Please do let us know what you'd like to see, what kind of programs you'd like us to have. And there's a lot of other good information there, including some demographic stuff, which might be a little for you guys to complete. But with our funders, we're getting a lot of questions about the makeup of our membership and our supporters and our board. So we appreciate you answering those questions as best you can. And we are going to close the survey on Monday. So now is your chance, and I really mean it. I want every single one of you to fill out that survey. Yes, Debbie.
A week from Monday,
30th,
right?
No, it's the 20th.
Oh, 23rd.
The 20th is when we're closing it.
Oh, okay.
So it's on Monday. Yeah, so up to it. All right, so yeah, just bring home your program and scan the QR code and do it when you're back at home. It takes like 5 minutes or so to complete. It's really important. And now we're gonna have Ms. Barbara Jacobs, who is our vice president, and she's also the chair of the development team, who has been writing some grants and having some really exciting news expanding the Western Greenway. Barbara.
Thank you. Well, thank you for a wonderful presentation. I'm a cyclist and I just, it just fascinates me. So I'm going to talk about the Western Greenway MCRT connection. MCRT is the Mass Central Rail Trail that is in the process of being completed in South Waltham. And the Western Greenway is a trail that goes from, it depends which way you're walking. But if we're going to start in Waltham, it goes from the Payne Estate around Beaver Street, and it ends at Habitat in Belmont. And it goes through Waltham, Lexington, and Belmont. And I was on it today, leading a group of 20 people, so it was quite exciting. I did it for the Waltham Land Trust also on Saturday, just to have an idea and for people to see what the Greenway is all about. But our goal this year, or it has been our goal for quite a few years, was to connect to the Mass Central Rail Trail. And I know Mark is thrilled. We got a grant, and I hope I can do this. Okay, so we got a grant for Mass Trails. So right now we are working with ourselves, the Land Trust, Mass Trails that gave us a wonderful grant, and Historic New England, which owns the Lyman Estate. So our goal is to move from Beaver Street through the Belmont, the Bentley property, which we already have an easement for, through and now get into the Lyman Estate. Once we get through this process, hopefully we will have an easement with Lyman Estate, and we will have a walking trail through that property and go through the MCRT. So what do we have to do here? So I've talked about that. We need that trail easement so we can get through things. And so what we did, we received a grant from Mass Trails. And basically it will fund a topographical survey map of the trail that we're going to put in place at the Lyman Estate, Historic New England Lyman Estate. That's to get an easement with them. Once we get that easement, we will build. Okay, but the second part that we're looking to do and hope to do is build a bridge over Chesterbrook Lyman Pond. And in order to do that, we're having a contractor out there who will do a feasibility study. how feasible is it gonna be to put a bridge there? What type of bridge can we put there? So we're working on that. We have 2 contractors, one for each at this point in time, and they should be starting to work. Now, this is, if we look at where we are and what we're doing, the first map shows different exhibits, but the top of the red line basically is Beaver Street. So that's where we are now. Going through to Beaver Street, beyond that playing field, that's Bentley property. Lyman Estate is just under that playing field. That's the beginning of that, of Lyman Estate. And Lyman Estate goes to the MCRT. Okay, what we also have to do is we have to get a bridge. Oops, what's happening? Oh, there it is. Okay, we need to get a bridge in there so we can avoid going over the Lyman Street Bridge that already exists. We really don't want to do that. So you can see it in both places. You can see where we are. Historic New England parking lot up there. You can see the mansion a little bit, but you can also see the Garden Crest Apartments, and the like. At one point in time, there was a bridge over this water, but it was taken away. We were told because of taxes. They had to pay taxes on it, so they took it down. I don't know, is that totally true, Mark? We don't know. But it's legend. It could be a legend. So our next step is to secure that easement with Historic New England. I believe we're probably about 85% there. As soon as we get the survey in, we'll be working with them more. We need to apply for funds to build that bridge. And then we need to install the Western Greenway and historical information and signage throughout. So once we get the bridge built, we can build the walkway. And we'll do that with volunteers. So that's where we are. That is an old picture that Dee Cricker found in historical records of what the pond, the Lyman Pond, Chesterbrook looked like. But was it late 1800s? Yeah, I think that's what it, like 1895 is when it was, so. What?
I said it's a very good year.
It was a good year. Oh, yeah, so, any questions about that? About what we're doing? So it's been a very good year for us too. We also just last Saturday found out that we got a grant from the Judith Record Conservation Fund to help us pay for this. So it's really wonderful. Not all the board knows about that. Yes, John.
Well, is this trail going to be bikeable?
Yes.
Walkable?
Bikeable.
Well, that would be good to avoid the Lyman Street Bridge.
Right, that's the reason, but it is, we have worked it out that the Lyman state will allow us to have bikes. So I'm supposed to be.
Very excited, right?
To get that funding for that bridge. Laurel.
Yes.
I am going to introduce Laurel, and I don't know your last name. Carpenter. Laurel Carpenter, who's going to talk to you about the Mass Central Rail Trail. Yes, thank you.
And folks, I do want to recognize Councilor George Darcy, who came in a little bit ago, so.
Okay, so I'm thrilled to be here. I've been giving updates on this for quite a few years now, and so this year is very exciting to have a little more progress. To keep us on track, I'm going to move right along. I might have time for 1 or 2 questions if at the end possibly, or I can talk to folks after just to keep us on track. So to give context, the Mass Central Rail Trail is an envisioned 104-mile rail trail that goes from Boston, Northampton along the corridor of the former Massachusetts Central Railroad. So Waltham is one piece of that. And today, 60 miles are fully developed rail trail, and about 90 miles of the 100 are in protected status. The easternmost end, starting in Waltham at Beaver Street, the DCR has permission to develop a rail trail out to Berlin. But just because DCR has the permission, they don't necessarily have the money. So all the different communities have been using different means to fund their section. And in Waltham, in 2022, the city committed $9,300,000 CPA funds and contracted with ET&L to build phase 1, which is a 3-mile inner segment between Beaver Street on the eastern end and the 1265 Main Street segment that was previously constructed as part of the Market Basket Shopping Center development. And this shows Beaver Street end, and one of the signs that definitely it's DCR, but also has every sign says rail trail funded by City of Waltham 2023. There are wayfinding signs throughout, and even though the corridor is paved, it forms a linear park, offering respite from Waltham's busy streets, access to many green spaces throughout the length of the corridor. And on a couple of these wayfinding signs, you can see the Charles River, and also the Western Greenway is actually one of the signs listed. There were many new trees planted, beautiful trees, the tulip tree and native vegetation. There were trail amenities such as benches. And here, this is Middlesex Circle, and then you can't quite see, it's kind of blurry, but the right side, that's actually also a Mass Trails grant. There's a Mass Trails logo. That is a trail usage counter, and it will have electronic display of daily users, and also the annual users are on the display. So when completed, this corridor will serve many people making longer trips, but we believe that actually the highest use is going to be short trips within Waltham, people that are going from home to school or to work or to our parks and green spaces. And this counter is at Lexington Street, so this is it's the busiest intersection. It's possible that there's much more use even on either side of Lexington Street that maybe not crossing Lexington Street. Thank you to the work of Marie and Mort, who did much work to make sure that historic elements throughout the path were preserved. They did a great job going through this Waltham Highlands station and preserving the unique character of Waltham. Most properties along the trail don't have fences, but even in this example, as we've seen in many, many other rail trails, there's a gate so that the homeowner can get out to this wonderful trail amenity that's in their backyard. And this is there's so many beautiful spots along it, but this is near Luna Street looking to the west with the rock outcrop, and it's just a beautiful corridor. This is the western end of the project limit. You can see in the color contrast that black pavement is where the new phase 1 just ended, and then that goes on to the previous construction that was the tunnel under Border Road as part of the Market Basket development. So on the inner segment, the final remaining hurdle is the Linden Street Bridge, which has not been constructed yet, and this is at grade, so there's a ramp has been constructed, so users that are on Linden Street can get up to the elevated level where the bridge goes over the road and also over the water. So it's my understanding that there is a funding gap to finish the work on that bridge, so that is not resolved yet, but we look forward to future phases to the west and western connections and that are being worked on, and also to the east in Belmont, and then eventually connecting to Alewife. That's it.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
When is this section? I've been looking and looking, and it says trail closed now for a long time. When are we officially going to have?
We cannot say when it's going to open, because it's really up to the mayor, and I think as long as the bridge is not done, she probably won't open it.
So they won't open the section of it?
I can't say that. I mean, we just don't know, but they are still working on landscaping, painting, striping, so there are still pieces in progress, but I have to say there are certainly lots of people using certain sections as well. So the next speaker is Diana, who will be speaking about the Lakeview. And I can talk more after, because I think to get back on track.
We have a Q&A section at the end.
Yes, okay.
Now we're gonna hear about the new parcels of the land trust bought. Lakeview Avenue that we are so excited about, and we have lots of beautiful pictures.
We'll get there. So we gotta go one more. Wrong way. Okay. I want to talk to you about the 3 properties we bought this past year. We bought 3 unbuildable lots that were along Hardy Pond. And that had been used for years for people walking. And that was because the Giardina family that owned the properties, they owned all 3, were always open to having people use the property. And when the last of the parents died, Mrs. Giardina died a few years ago, the family was looking to sell the house. They had no use for the house, and they were back and forth. Should they try to sell the house with the properties, with these 3 plots or not? And we talked to them. I believe Betty and Kathy Mahuli talked to at least one of the siblings. I think there were either 5 or 6. And they expressed some interest in at least talking to us about buying the lots. And after some negotiation back and forth, we were able to acquire that property, which had been a goal for many years. When I was still on the CPC, which goes back to 2018, and a few years before that, the CPC tried to buy these properties and several others, which I'll show you in a moment. But and we did the appraisals, and we talked to the law department and tried to get that property purchased, and that has continued in the last few years to try to get the city to buy it, but they weren't doing anything. So when the opportunity hit, we took it and we bought it. This is a rendering, Mark Rudnick's rendering of what we've got. We were trying to have the city acquire 6 properties, so we got half of them. So the 3 that we got are right here, along here, and in there is one city-owned plot, this tiny little city-owned plot. So actually we have use of 4 right there. And so that takes over most of a good portion of what we wanted. These abutters here, these properties are what we would hope to acquire over time. And that would connect up to Smith Point, which is a little piece of property that we bought a number of years ago. One of the things that we did in talking to the family was to say that we would like to memorialize their parents, because the parents had stewarded the land, taken care of it, and made it available to the public. And that seemed to be a strong selling point on our part. So the property is acquired. So that all will be part of the Hardy Pond Conservation Area in time, which is a project we've talked about in the past, which would acquire, is in the process of acquiring other pieces of property by the city, not by us, but would make a very large area of conservation property. Let me show you some of the pictures. It's really got a beautiful site to be able to see the pond. These are just a few. That's along the shore. And the road. Actually, you can see the road on the side. There again is
New Bend.
And there's some more of it. You can see that the road itself there is a private road, and it's kind of dilapidated all along that portion of the street. But that gives you an idea of what the property looks like. And that gives, I think we've done a good job to find something that's pretty. It also helps protect the pond. And it's a piece of property that we were invested in already, fortunately for the family. And I think this is another reason why we were favorably looked upon, was that we had people who had stewarded this property, Betty McKenzie and some of her crew. I don't know how Betty does it all, but she gets everywhere, and had taken care to remove invasive plants and to help the family when they cut down some trees and they got in trouble with the Concom. And so they had to replace them. And so the land trust gave them advice and help in doing so. So in any event, those good relations paid off for us, and we now own the land. Now I get to do the next part, financial results. This will give you some idea of how the land trust is done this past year. Despite buying that land, but all that really did is we took cash and put it into land, and so it really didn't change our balance sheet. But this gives you an idea of what our expenses and our revenues have been. And as you can see from the chart, I hope you can, I tried to expand those numbers as much as they could be, but contributions equal about 33% of what money we get to do what we do. Special events, the green space, the race, that accounts for 43%. Dues account for 19%. And then we get 5% from other sources, selling books, grants, other things. And so that accounted for a total of $122,212 this past year. Our year end, by the way, is June 30. So it was June 30, 2023. Our expenses, and I think you can see it's worthwhile. 69% of our expenses are for payroll and the expenses that go along with payroll, the services, the payment of our portion of the Social Security tax, etc. But if we didn't do this, we wouldn't have Sonja. So it's a bargain. Then we have 11%. Yeah, you can clap for her. Program accounts for 11% of our spending. And the reason we can do a lot of program with 11% is because a bunch of volunteers. We have wonderful volunteers. The board is volunteers for a lot of activities, but so do an awful lot of other people with our stewards and other people who've been interested in the land trust. So 11%, which is nearly $10,000, which I think we do a lot with that amount of money. The office, which we have a new office this year, it's on Common Street, which is, just by the cafe on the Common. It's in the same building. And we have to pay a little more rent than we did when we were at the field station, but it's a much nicer office. The old one was awful. Our administrative expense counts for 8% or $7,000. And then fundraising is 1%. And that again is mostly because we brought in some great grants, but it's mostly because it's volunteers doing the work. So in the end, our change in net assets was $33,724, of which our operating profit was $27,000 roughly, which is a good year for us. It's better than we've had in the last few. And I think that's because of a concentrated effort on a whole bunch of people. The rest came through additions to some of the funds that we have on the balance sheet. So that gives you a picture of how we're doing financially. Anybody have any questions, I can answer, or we can talk about it later? Okay, finance is always, it's so many questions. So at this point, let me introduce, Nadene Stein, who's going to run the business meeting, but let me also point out that the Tuesday after Thanksgiving is Giving Tuesday, so if you're in, would like to give us some more to work with, that was the appropriate time, although we'll take your money anytime.
So, please consider us in your year-end giving. We really appreciate the support from all of you. Nadene?
Hello again. I get the best part of the meeting, which is a business meeting. Here I am. So we are, you know, it's very bittersweet at this time of year. We are, you know, we're happy that we have some new board members to vote on, but we are saying goodbye to 4 really special board members. And some of them are here tonight, so maybe they will stand up and take some recognition. I don't know if Erica is here. Erica Bourne, Martha Freedom. So like I mentioned, this is a volunteer board, and these 4 people have put in a lot of hours to help this organization get where it is. So thank you guys so much. I might cry. We're not saying goodbye though, because we'll still see you around. In your program, you do have some, you have biographies of board members, current and a couple of new people who are seeking to join the board tonight with a vote. So just going to highlight a couple things about the new people, and you know, while I'm doing that, you can either listen to me or you can read on your. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Deb Herman, who's not able to be here with us tonight, although maybe you're out there, Deb, in Zoom land. Deb is recently retired from a career in early childhood ed, and she was a Girl Scout and an honorary Boy Scout, which is awesome to have those skills on the board. And she has been a steward for a while, and she's active in the Boston Mycology Club. I don't know what mycology is. Oh, mushroom. I'm always happy to learn new things every day. So now I've learned about bicycling, and now I learned about this. And also the Brookline birders, and she often can be found forest bathing at Prospect Hill Park. I'm not gonna ask what that is. Nat May, who is here tonight, maybe Nat, if you don't mind standing so people can kind of see you and wave to you. Nat is an architect, construction supervisor, and CEO of Aurora Architects and Builders, focusing on helping clients create homes that are healthy, energy efficient, low carbon, durable, and resilient. Awesome skills for us to have on the board, so we're really excited. He's been building things since he was a child. Maybe during the ice cream thing, you can check in with him about that. I probably don't have any pictures of that stuff, but maybe you do. If you have some pictures of those things that you made as a child.
I don't think I brought it.
I don't want to put you on the spot. Sorry about that. So he and his family had lived. Oh, you lived on a boat for 7 years. Is that what this is? Yeah, that's kind of cool. That is awesome. So anyway, Nat and his wife and children live in Waltham since 2014, and they live in a net positive all-electric home that they designed and remodeled. Isn't that cool? And Nat likes to garden, hike, play the drums in several local bands. I love musicians, and of course, still sales. So we're hoping that in addition to Nat and Deborah, we have returning board members Dan Berlin, and Dan has been doing the technology stuff tonight. So Dan, can you stand up and let everybody know who you are? Gary Fresh from London is here with us tonight. He's a awesome board member. Debbie von Reckenberg, if you're lucky enough to bid on her granola at the Greenway. And Diana Young, who's already seen tonight. So I feel like I should just mention the other board members. So maybe the other board members who are not getting elected tonight because we stagger the you know, the terms. Thank you. Could just stand up and wave. We have other board members here, because I'm just going to read your names off the list here. Or maybe I'm This is recognized, Barbie Jacobs, Chief Mark Rudnick, Richardson, Marie Daly, John Diekman's not here with us tonight, and Dan Melnichuk. So thank you guys all for being on the board. And at this point, I would like to take a motion to nominate. These are the nominees. So I'm taking a motion to elect these people to the board. So moved. And is there a second? The second right back there. Is there any discussion? I'll wait time in my confession. All in favor of voting on these board members?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? All right, unanimous. Congratulations, everyone.
Yeah, so the board members
Uh-oh.
themselves are wearing these green buttons. So come and chat with us if you'd like to talk with us more about that. And also in that survey that you all are gonna take, if you haven't already, there are questions about if you're interested in being involved with our committees or on the board. We do want folks to know that to be a member of the board, you do have to be a current dues paying member of the Waltham Land Trust. So if you're not a member, you can join us on walthamlandtrust.org. And I forgot to bring with me the hard copies of them, but sign up online and yeah, complete that survey, get involved with our committees, and if you're interested in being on our board, let us know. We'll consider you.
Yeah, we would love to have more people interested in the board and on our committees. So, you know, we've heard about the stewards, but Barbara is grant writing all the time, and Diana's help program development. We have some great special events that we would love some help with as well. Land committee meets, we have financial committee, and I'm moving any things out.
The tech
committee
committee is where we really actually need help, like now.
Well, Deanna's been doing a great job tonight.
And it's gonna be the job, thank you. But yeah, I'm not a tech person, so I really rely on the volunteers and the tech team to help with the website, with our CRM database thing, with social media, although I do the Insta and the Flickr.
Sonja's come a long way when it comes to technology. She don't think she had a phone when she first became an executive.
Yeah.
Now she has a smartphone and everything. Don't let her sell herself short.
Yeah, no tech, if you have any tech skills for real, we need you, like, yeah. Thank you.
So, before we, go into the back to have ice cream and ask people more questions, maybe privately, are there any questions that anybody has right now that we can? I don't think I can answer them, but somebody will be able to. Yes.
Can you say anything about Waltham Community Farm?
And we might have somebody from the farm in the audience tonight. Stacy's still here?
Wait,
You want-
Stacey Daly, the
Yeah.
executive director of Waltham Fields Community Farm. I'm not sure if she wants to speak to it, but.
I mean, I can give a brief update or
That'd be great.
anything that's of concern, but we are gonna have a statement out. We are feeling some urgency in what's happening to the property that so many of our community members have been advocating for a long time. The most recent development is a notice that went to the chamber of the city council last Thursday. With 10 items for the mayor, one of which includes a notice to quit, which is an eviction notice. And we are greatly concerned to see that printed in the public. And recently this week we received a notification stating that the city would consider offering a license for the land. Now, license is very different than a lease. A license comes with the same conditions that we dealt with in MAS, which provides no protection for our tenants and only a 30-day potential for that to affect us. So we are under some pretty rough constraints right now, but we welcome everyone to come enjoy the open space there. And the bird watching there is beautiful, and we will be having a statement over for these pretty dire.
So I also want to make sure you welcome questions and answers from people out in virtual space, and if you could put them in the chat, that would be great. Any other questions from the in person? Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering with the Central Mass Rail, what's gonna happen with the Wellington then? If it's stuck, well, 65 Main Street, what happens to people there getting over there?
Here comes our expert.
I can speak briefly, so the 128 crossing is a MassDOT project. And that's still in preliminary design, I just checked it on the webpage tonight before I came here, so. There's no advancement right now, and there's not like public design other than last meeting, that's a MassDOT project. Beyond that, DCR is actively working up to the western line, there's a bridge over the active rail. That has just recently went to Concom for in Waltham and in Weston, and that was approved order of condition, so. DCR is separating out that bridge to construct that small piece, because the 128 piece is a much bigger scale project through MassDOT.
That's the Department of Transportation, yes, people don't know what that stands for. Other questions? I also want to point out that in addition to Mr. Finison's books that are for sale, you can work directly with him and his team about purchasing those for how much?
He said $25.
25?
Cash or Venmo.
Awesome. Over here, we have this amazing book by Nadene, the Nature Guide to Prospect Hill Park. So we only have like a dozen or so of these copies. So get them all, we got them. And then we also have t-shirts. We have lady style, which has a bigger neck and shorter sleeves, a little shorter here. And unisex, which is just like a big old box. Here as well as our fabulous hats. These are all $20. Bargain. If you're interested in purchasing one of our products, please put a deposit into Hootie. Look at the donation now, it's right here. But yes, work with Mr. Finison's team to purchase his book, please. And yeah, and one other thing that I wanted to point out over here are our party pond guides. The team has put in signs and stencils for our party pond walkway, pathway that goes kind of around the pond. We're working on another part of building another aspect of this trail, working with the folks at Winter Village, and I'm putting in a boardwalk or something there. So yeah, our Lakeview properties are on this map here, so come and check one of these out. All of our maps, of course, are on walthamlandtrust.org on the trails app. Okay, is it time for ice cream?
So we asked you to join us for some special treats. Thank you for Sally and Mark for the happy meeting. Thank you all for coming tonight.